I've been starting these sessions for the past couple of years, celebrating a female founder. I celebrated my friend Akanksha yesterday. Are you here, Akanksha? She's the CEO of Socialize. But today I have a lot of people from my team, which rarely happens because we're in New York City. Can all of our teams stand up because they're the ones who made it happen?
Woo!
Thank you. All right. Well,
Clearly our teams don't love us because there were like 4 people that
but we show how we're lean and we get the work done.
Good.
So thank you all for joining us today. Obviously, attention gets a lot of attention in the industry, and we're here to talk about why we don't need to pay it any attention. I have a remarkable panel here. We have Stephanie, who I think I'm the biggest fan of. We've worked together for over a decade, and I always say she's one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. But then I met 2 other very smart people recently. We have Craig, who's the CMO of American Eagle, and we've had some great chats about what it takes for getting a generation that refuses to follow any rules of marketing that we've seen in the past few decades, and help with conversion. And then we also have Sophia, who heads marketing at TikTok, which I don't think needs any description because it speaks for itself. So thank you all for joining us. But before we start this, how many of us have heard of attention? Can we have a show of hands? All right, a fair number. Then how many of us know how it is measured? Okay, we got a couple of people, nice. I wasn't going to ask the third question, but now I'm not even going to do that because then that'll lead to 0. But that's the whole point, right? We hear about these things in our industry, and we use them because we kind of have to. But the point is, what do they stand for? And so we're here to learn from the leaders who have to navigate these waters every day to talk about attention. So I'll set the whole talk up with how this entire thing came about. Forever in the media and marketing world, we have looked at media as like reach and frequency, and that's been the core measurement, and you've probably heard that 1,000 times. And forever we've known that reaching somebody alone or hitting them multiple times alone is not what leads to conversion. So forever there has been this need to measure the quality of impact. But that quality of impact has been very hard to measure because you can go to people and ask them, did this impact you? And they will tell you, but most decision making happens in the subconscious anyway, and you're not going to get the answer. So a few years ago, Mark Pritchard at potentially an ANA conference went and asked this question of digital marketers. Either you prove the impact of this to me, or I'm not investing any more money in this. And that led to a lot of different streams of work, and attention was one of those things that came out. So it's become a rather popular metric in this industry. So we'll start off the conversation asking our panelists, what to you is attention? And if it's measurable, then how do we measure it? Stephanie, you want to go first?
Yeah, it's interesting because as I was thinking about this, and I didn't even say this to you, I was thinking about kind of the steps or the path. So first of all, you need someone to actually see the message, right? And we have viewability metrics that measure, did someone actually see that message? And then we need them to absorb it in some way. We need it to have some kind of impact on people that hopefully drives them towards some type of conversion, either in the short or the long term. And there's a lot of things that happen along the way. But one of the things that I thought about that made me think about you was that, we talk about, and I've been talking a long time about how eyeballs aren't enough. It's not just reach, right? It's not just the number of people who saw it, but it's the impact and the type of person who saw it and the impact on that person. But there is also attention or engagement or even kind of deeper loyalty to brands that happens without actually being able to measure that. And I was reminded of this video that Pranav showed me a long time ago. And it was this video where these people were going through a city. They were advertising executives, and they weren't told anything. They were just going through a city, and then they got to this building, and they were told, put together a campaign. Put together a campaign. I can't even remember the product. And they did. And it had all of these elements of things that they had driven past or seen during the day that if you ask them, they might not have actually remembered it or recalled it, but it sunk into their brains. It actually created an action in terms of how they ingested that information and how they actually built that campaign. That was so fascinating. So it just kind of demonstrates, I guess, how difficult it is, right, to understand through surveys and even through short-term action, the impact that something has on a person and how we measure the quality of that message or that impression with those users, and why it's so difficult for us to, I guess, do our jobs today. But I thought, thinking back on that was kind of an interesting example of how that actually plays out and why we have these types of conversations.
Remarkable. Craig?
Yeah, so I'm the CMO for Gen Z's #1 retailer, American Eagle. I'm going to throw out some numbers for all of us to wrap our head around. 1, Gen Z receives 10,000 messages every day. It's a lot of messages, right? 2, attention span has decreased, 8 seconds at a time of attention span. And then we have some fancy marketing measurement models that tell us it takes more than 20 touches to actually convert them into AE product. What does it set up? Attention is probably the most important thing that our marketing team focuses on today. But attention, in our humble opinion, is not a roadblock. You know, we were talking about this, and I don't mean to start throwing darts at certain advertising platforms, but you know, YouTube to me is an infuriating ad product because it actually blocks me from what I want to get to. And so as a brand marketing team, we're looking at how do you add value to whatever that journey is? How does it feel authentic? With our friends at TikTok, we know what type of creative really works for Gen Z. And again, it's authentic, it hits fast, it hits quick, but there's value add to it. So I guess, Pranav, what we've been talking about in preparation for this panel is attention for attention's sake is not the game we all should be playing. Attention to drive intention is probably the most important thing.
Amazing. What a headline. Sophia?
Yeah. By the way, we have some openings on the marketing team.
I know, I was going to say, is she paying you? What's going on?
No, on this platform, intention for me is directly synonymous with engagement. And engagement today is different than engagement of the past. It's not about shares and likes. Engagement on TikTok is people spending a movie's worth of time on the platform. It's not coming and checking TikTok, but actually watching TikTok for a movie's worth of time. Also, this sense of community. So we have what we call community talks. And you can think about communities on the platform as like essentially the new demographic. It's people coming together to find like-minded passions and interests and really forming a community and having conversations with each other through their creation of TikToks and through the comments. And so when you think about that level of attention that is being put onto this platform, that for me is what we think about when we think about attention. And the opportunity for brands is, if you can show up in a really authentic and native way, then you have an opportunity to get that much attention from our TikTok user base.
Lovely. You know, people have heard me say this before, that the human brain is a pattern-seeking and storytelling device. So essentially, we perceive all of our lives and culture in these stories, and the way we have built a civilization is based on these stories. And I go back to the Iliad or the Odyssey or even the Old Testament, where if you were to boil down what it is that they want people to take away from these stories, you can write them on one page. But these are grand epics because it needs, you know, this kind of storytelling, and that happened, and then this person was born, and then this crisis happened. For you to engage with that story, and then for you to place the brand or the key message, as we may call it in our world, in a point where people are more receptive to taking that. And the reason why we have this panel today is because we have 3 different people who do it in remarkably different ways, but actually are doing the same thing. Here, you have millions of fans coming themselves to a platform and engaging for hours because they believe in the story of whatever they are the fans of. Here you have Gen Zs whose identities depend on this brand and the next moves that will be made, and therefore there is that relationship. And then again, when we get to TikTok, is always like, I don't really need to say more about TikTok, because that's what it's done, right? It's created these stories that have engaged people at a level where they're willing to receive this content at unprecedented scale and numbers. And then within those stories are embedded brand and advertising messages. And if they are authentic, people take them away with it. So the next question for our esteemed panel here is obviously through your careers, you've seen a lot of things like attention or other things come up. And then they don't stand the test of time because, they are limited theories and are worth for a certain. So one, share with us what you've seen over all of these years as quote unquote fads, and how do you as a marketer navigate it? What is your testing, philosophy, and how do you make choices?
Yeah. So for us at Fandom, so we're a fan platform of communities, 250,000 communities across every imagined world. So TV shows, movies, games. If you go to Google, you search Luke Skywalker, which you could do right now, you'll end up on Fandom. You've all been there. You might not realize it, but we have 300 million people who come every month. And the way that we think about fandom, the way that we think about how our fans pay attention, right, is we think a lot about their different journeys and their different use cases and why they come to us and when they come to us, and how we can meet other needs that they have across that experience. So if they come in because they have a question, because they're watching Harry Potter and they don't remember what happened in the previous movie, for example, and it's making it so that they can't fully enjoy what they're watching because they don't remember. They can come and they can fill in those dots. But how can we also help them connect with other Harry Potter fans? How can we also help them get news on what's coming next? How can we also help them make sure that they're aware of when things are coming and get their attention in that way and really fill out that journey for them, get the latest collectible, et cetera. So that's a lot of what we're thinking about right now, is how we can create a space where fans can come and really immerse themselves across that journey. And we can create that loyalty, not just around the IP that they're coming to us for, but also for fandom at large, because I think we have the ability also to help them understand what's next for them, what that next fandom might be that they might really love. And we talk a lot about those relationships between the fandoms and how that actually sits within your identity, of whether it's a show that you would recommend to someone when someone asks what you're watching, versus among the first 3 things that you might say describes who you are as a person, right? Which is a much deeper part of who you are and your identity. And that's true. I mean, it goes beyond loyalty, really, right? It's actually part of who you are at that point. And so we think a lot about kind of the different phases of that journey, the different phases of fan identity, and how we can bring that to life on the platform.
Fantastic. And to go back to like some of the other fads that you've faced during your careers, do any come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, I've been at NBC, and it's funny because at NBC I still refer to Heroes and Chuck. Does anyone love Heroes and Chuck? Does anyone remember Heroes and Chuck? Thank you.
I do.
Thank you. I would recommend going back to them if you don't. And thinking about when even full episode players first started and how we were seeing that kind of change in engagement and attention, really with those shows in a really different way, in a different experience. And we've done work together on the lean back versus lean forward experience as well, and the different kind of levels of engagement, which is kind of another way of looking at it, which is this lean back in your living room versus sitting there engaging kind of one-to-one with the screen or with your phone, in bed, and having a more intimate experience with your favorite fandoms, all the way through to engaging with fans in Serbia who love the thing that you love, and being able to create that connection relationship. So I think over time I've seen kind of the full gamut from viewing all the way to identity, and how we kind of play a role in each part of that journey.
Lovely. Craig?
Hey, if you're on the brand or the client side of the marketing equation, my recommendation is to put a reasonable amount of innovation budget on the side and play with it. And at American Eagle, we celebrate the failures as much as we celebrate the successes. So for example, yesterday we became one of the first brands to jump on one of the buzziest Gen Z apps, Be Real. We actually had fun with the launch and said, we don't even know how this is going to go. Come watch the train wreck that is American Eagle on Be Real, which, by the way, you should. So come join us. But first day was amazing. And we're just going to test and learn and have some fun. And honestly, if it is a train wreck, that's okay. We learn. Flip side is sometimes you find some successes. So on Snapchat, we launched these pop-up virtual reality stores. I thought it might be a fun little play for Gen Z attention. Not so much. Not just attention, because we were getting 10-minute at a time sessions, but we actually drove a significant amount of revenue now, and it's part of our tried and true strategy. So I think it's that innovation budget and having a little bit of fun that actually drives some success at AE. But Pranav, I have to say though, in terms of shiny toys, this might be provocative, but in my industry, I've never seen QR codes work, never. So, I know during the pandemic, all of us were beaming up QR codes to get a cocktail or, a bite to eat, but QR codes have not worked. So it'll be interesting to see if they stand the test of time or not.
Yeah. I think they're valuable in experiences, though.
Maybe, right?
Yeah.
It has never worked for my industry, and I've been doing this gig at Calvin, at Gap, at Abercrombie, and now AE, not working in retail. If you have any ideas, please come find me afterwards, right? Yeah.
We have a collaboration here.
There we go.
What fans are most open to?
Yeah.
QR codes.
QR codes, yeah.
Sophia?
Yeah, I think, we're so new, so we're still working through a lot of our measurement, but you've seen the impact. You've seen the impact that TikTok has had on consumer behavior. We're getting people to read more books. Like Barnes & Noble is starting to lean into the platform to understand what titles are really kind of people are passionate about. We have this whole phenomenon called TikTok Made Me Buy It, with several billions of engaged views, where people are learning about products from each other and actually taking action and buying. We caused a national feta cheese shortage because someone posted a TikTok about how to make feta pasta. I mean, that is the impact that is being had. That is the action that people are taking based on the attention that they have on the platform. So we're seeing it rise. It's definitely here. I think the key is, for all of you in the audience who are marketers, is can you think like a marketer but show up like a creator? That is the key piece, because you cannot, you can repurpose your assets from other platforms and from other mediums, but we see a significant uptick in performance when you make a TikTok, when you make creative that is native for the platform. And to do that, we recommend really leaning into creators who are the experts.
Yeah. And the work that we've done together kind of really nails that point.
Yes.
And it happens because, every platform has its own grammar. And if you do not learn the grammar of where you're going, you're not going to be successful. And in the NeuroInsight model of decision making, if I have to summarize what we've learned in the past 12 years in one line, it is that memories are not an accurate or active repository of the past. Memories are guideposts for future behavior. Essentially saying that evolutionarily, we have been created, and the hardware of the brain is just the hardware. Culture and society is the operating system. And we use memories. Have you seen the movie Inside Out?
Of course.
Much like the movie Inside Out, we use memories as like tent poles to define our identity. You are born in a certain culture. Religion plays an important part. You make that core memory. Family, core memory. But in our everyday experiences, as we experience people and content on TikTok, in Fandom, other platforms, these stories create memories within our brain. And if and only if a brand or a key message is able to make it into your memory structures, you have that information to react to tomorrow, day after, or at some point in the future. Which is the whole point of advertising, is giving you a message today to hopefully for you to act at some point in the future. Now, that is our worldview and our model, measuring long-term memory as you are receiving any information, because that to us is the defining factor for conversion. For you, forget about whether it's possible or not, whether it's scalable or not. What is the one thing you'd like to measure for you to be able to get comfort with what you're doing with the platform?
I would say loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
And there's steps before loyalty, obviously, right? There's awareness, and then there's favorability, and then there's kind of need, right? Usage and need that drives loyalty. And loyalty to me, and loyalty can be measured a lot of different ways. So you can look at return visits as an example. But I feel like loyalty is something that sits much deeper. It's something that when you make a decision, regardless of rational factors that might guide that decision, like a price point or availability, that you make the irrational decision because you're so loyal to that brand, right? And to me, that's the thing that is not a one-off transaction. It's not a short-term conversion that a lot of us look at, but that's what keeps that consumer, that fan, continuing to love you, to love that brand, and how you reinforce that loyalty, make sure that you don't actually erode that loyalty, which can happen too, I think is how you know that you have someone who's with you, who has, in business terms, long-term value for you, but is someone who's going to, stick around and be with you. And to me, that's the real indicator of success, is when you have that loyalty. But it's very hard to measure that because it's not something that's easy to ask about directly. It's something that you kind of see through how people act over time.
Amazing. Craig?
So I was sitting around a campfire last week with a bunch of other marketers when someone threw out a provocative thought starter that brands exist to sell the same shit at a much higher price. Now, I'm not sure I completely agree with that, and I can tell you that the product engine of American Eagle definitely does not agree with that. But I do think it's an interesting and provocative thought. And so I think as we, even as big as we are, we're the David in the hand-to-hand combat with the Goliaths of Amazon, Walmart, and Target. And maybe now this company called Shein, which has emerged as a fast fashion craze, is how does brand affect attention? How does brand affect intention? How does brand affect conversion? And while we have some things that directly help us understand that, I think it would help my team immensely in the other struggle, which is with our CFO to get more and more money to spend from a marketing budget perspective.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Sophia?
Yeah, I guess I'll answer it with a comment. I work with CMOs every day, and I know that ultimately CMOs are having a lot of conversations with CEOs and CFOs, right? And we've sat in this very kind of traditional, comfortable mindset of how we look at measurement. That's why we're discussing this today. And I guess my challenge to the industry is we have to step out of that box and we have to start thinking about measurement and success differently, because admittedly our platform doesn't offer a lot of the traditional measurement options that we're used to as marketers for the last few decades. We have new platforms like Be Real coming up. How can we experiment more? like you do, without having to deliver the same measurement metrics. I think we just have to open our minds to that and start challenging the kind of budget owners to have that mentality as well.
Love it. I mean, and you can't, put something that is created for today to the standards of yesterday,
Right.
When we know those tools never worked for that time either.
Right.
So, we have the age-old saying in marketing, like 80% of my marketing dollars go to waste. I just know which 80%. It's because even back in the time of radio or TV, they didn't have measurement that could tell them.
Yep.
So, and now to force you to do that is a failed exercise. All right, we have 3.5 minutes left. So we'll do a quick fire. Tell us one thing in your business with attention or without attention that you've seen most audience engagement in, work that you're most proud of.
So for me, and it's interesting because I think a lot about like the trade-off between the new and trying things out and having, money for innovation with is this a scaled opportunity for us when we don't have innovation budgets to run with, and how, certainly in talking to our CFO, how I kind of balance that too. And I think for me, and I've been through these cycles a lot of what is that new thing that a publisher will offer that maybe doesn't scale at all, but drives some engagement and you see some early wins. But then when is that point where you actually need to see that pay off? And what do you kind of sign up for in terms of this is learning in this moment, but it's learning that then becomes a scaled opportunity at some point down the line, as opposed to a flash in the pan opportunity. How you kind of prove or demonstrate that over time, I think is really important. But I would say in terms of where I get really excited about the future and about connection and about creating loyalty and the really valuable attention is experiences. And I probably say this even, equally personally as I do as a CMO, in that experiences that are really immersive, especially, and I think I'm lucky to play in this fan space where, again, fandom is such a big part of people's identity. To see people come together and celebrate that together is really incredible. We, just did a party in New York Comic Con. We did one at San Diego Comic Con where we do kind of the opening event. And it's like you see people, and there's cosplay and there's other ways of kind of demonstrating or showing your fandom out loud in a way that I just think is really powerful, where people feel comfortable to be themselves and to celebrate that with other people who also love those things. And when you see them come together and you see them, they're both wearing Sailor Moon, outfits, and they've like found each other like in person, and they can celebrate that together, is just incredibly powerful to me. And the more that we bring those fandoms into those experiences, we create these immersive ways to kind of, even within the experience, get out of the experience. And that's where I think QR codes can play a role of giving you more information, helping you on a scavenger hunt as you're trying to solve clues within these worlds. To me is really the ultimate in experience and in reinforcing that loyalty in a really special way. It's really hard to measure.
Yeah.
But I believe in it. And I think, we'll get there on the measurement front as being a really meaningful way to really break through with fans.
Fantastic. Craig, quick one. I know you have a
Okay,
good
the Oscar
one.
music is about to go, so I'm going to be quick. Gaming is important to Gen Z. We built stores inside of NBA 2K. We've had crazy contests on Twitch, like underwear streak, with the pun intended, but nothing has approached Roblox. So Roblox, we become the second most visited brand on that platform, only next to Gucci. 50 million unique visitors. Most importantly, 10 minutes per session, and 30 million try-ons of AE clothes on the avatar.
Yep.
Leads me to believe there's something there in that digital world.
That's a great point.
Sophia.
I'm most excited about what TikTok has done to give voices to the voices that weren't heard in the past. Underrepresented communities. You have someone like Kabi Lam, who is a black man factory worker from northern Italy, who's now the biggest creator in the world. Or someone like Angry Reactions, who was living homeless in his car in the south side of Chicago, who now is, doing Super Bowl ads with Pizza Hut.
Yeah, wow.
So just like elevating voices that have not been heard in the past. And that's a lesson for marketers. Like, think about who you're partnering with and think differently about it. Remarkable. Well, it's been a true pleasure. Thank you to the legends to share their ideas with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have been